Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, ciao, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so grateful that you are joining our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is our friend Yuliya Pankratova. She is back to celebrate the Chameleons' true colors. Before we invite Yuliya into the studio, we want to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Be sure to check out our merch page. You can be the first in your neighborhood to have the beautifully stylish Reading with Your Kids face mask. You can also get the official Reading with Your Kids t-shirt and coffee mug. Check it out today, readingwithyourkids.com, and hit the button for our merch page. Joining us right now from London in the United Kingdom, I'm really excited to welcome our guest back. She's here to celebrate her brand new picture book, The Chameleons' True Colors. Please welcome back to the show, Yuliya Pankratova. Yuliya, how are you?
Hello, I am very well. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm great. It's great. Yuliya, through the magic of technology, we can see each other. She has a great big smile on her face. There's beautiful green plants growing behind her. A cat clock with the tail going back and forth right above her shoulders. Isn't it wonderful that we're living in a time where you and I we're in the different sides of the world, but we can see each other, we can speak to each other, and celebrate the joys of children's literature.
That is very true. I think it's pretty exciting, really, in these kind of times of corona and these times of difficulty. I think that's something we have to look on as positively as we can. The fact that we can be connected from different sides of the world is pretty cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. Now, tell us about the Chameleons' True Colors. I'm really excited to learn about this.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So the Chameleons' True Colors, is a book I wrote a few years ago, and is being published by Familius this spring, which is very exciting. So it's about a little chameleon who basically has no colour. So he's sad, he's kind of, hanging upside down, feeling quite miserable for himself. And then actually he decides, I'm going to go find my own colour. So he goes round the jungle, meets all these different characters and learns about their colours and learns why they have the colours. Because a big part of the story, it's all about what is the purpose of colour. Colour is actually in nature has a reason. So, for example, the tiger is hiding in the tall grass. The beautiful flower is attracting the bees, so he's making his little bee friend. And, many more. Of course, the beautiful peacock who's, trying to show off to his friends. Basically the chameleon then finds that actually as he goes around the jungle, he picks up these colours and he ends up beautiful and multicoloured, and he's looking back at himself going, wow, I look amazing. But when he looks back to his friends to show them all how wonderful he looks, he realizes he's actually taken all the colour out of the jungle. So there's a fully black and white jungle, and everyone's looking really, really miserable. And they look just like how the chameleon looked at the very beginning, which is when he basically has a look and realizes, wow, that's how I used to feel actually, and that wasn't fun. So what I'll do is I will give the colours back. And kindly, the creatures end up sharing their colours with him. So it all ends up being a big message about sharing, and about kind of sharing the colours between themselves.
Wow, what a neat story, and what a neat message for kids. What inspired you to create this story? Where did this idea come from?
I think it did start with the idea of colours at the very beginning. I think a few years back I went to a brilliant exhibition in London at the Natural History Museum, and it was all about colour in nature. So as I said, a big part of what I was telling was actually not just that colour is beautiful and colour, is stunning and catches the eye. It actually has a purpose. And I think that's something I really thought was so interesting, and something I wanted to communicate. But then that's the kind of, the overarching message, the really, really core message, and probably the more important one is sharing. And that's something, I feel strongly about, and I think is a wonderful message to kind of communicate and to model basically to children.
Yeah, excellent. I love this. It's a great way to kind of give a couple of lessons to kids. That whole idea of helping kids understand that, the colors are beautiful, but they serve a purpose, I think can really ignite a kid's imagination and curiosity about the world around them. And there's so many kids in life. There's so many people who just kind of go through life unaware and uninterested in how things work. And I think that's, I don't know. I've never lived like that. So I don't know if it's sad, it's, content, but I wouldn't want to live like that. I love to kind of think about, wow, why is this like this? How is this working? How can it be different? What would it be like if it was different? I think those are all wonderful conversations for us to have with our kids, and it's a great way to kind of get them ready for life.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the kind of sense of wonder in the world and in nature particularly, now nature is so important, and maybe kids for the first time are starting to hear from their schools, from their parents about global warming, actually, about the dangers of climate change. I think it's really important to see the beauty of it and see the value of it. So yeah, I hugely agree.
Yeah. And, as you were talking about going into the jungle, I've been blessed with being able to visit a number of rainforests through the Caribbean and Central America. And there's just such amazing places I'm always just amazed when I'm just strolling through the rainforest and you just come upon an orchid that would, you'd have to pay a lot of money to have buy that orchid in Boston or in London. But here it is. It's just growing out in the wild. And there's another one and another, and all these beautiful flowers and, of course, creatures. And you don't even see half of the creatures that are there because they blend in to their surroundings. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, actually. The whole kind of setting with all those kind of amazing leaves, with, again, just the background colours that almost seem so normal. I loved working on that. And, of course, the illustration of it was so much fun because it was looking at these wonderful shapes, these really interesting textures. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's just a wonderful thing.
I'm interested that you picked a chameleon for your central character. We think of chameleons; they're always changing their colors, and it really is an amazing ability that they have. But to create a chameleon who has no color, that's kind of cool. Was there something that inspired that choice?
Well, I think firstly, I really like chameleons because they're a little bit odd. Mm-hmm. I kind of like that they're a little bit like, they look like little dragons. They've got these odd kind of elbows and funny jagged edges and big googly eyes and, curly tail. And the slight weirdness of it for me is quite attractive as both an illustrator and just, to write a story about this funny little creature, which is also amazing for so many reasons. So I think, whenever I've previously seen chameleons, I've always been quite drawn to them. And, in terms of, if I'm telling a story about colour, I thought that's, a brilliant thing to work on actually, because, slight spoiler alert, but the story is ultimately an old origin story, like a kind of Just So Kipling story. Mm-hmm. How did the chameleon get his colours? That's basically, how can the chameleon change his colours? Mm-hmm. And that's basically the story. The story is he actually can change his colours because he learns how to share.
Yeah, that's neat. And again, a lot of people, I think, they think that sharing and being kind and being empathetic, that's just something that we're born with or that we're supposed to be born with. And I suppose some kids kind of pick it up more naturally than others, but the reality is we all need to learn how to share.
Oh yeah, sharing is hard. Sharing is really, when you're little, sharing is really hard because, it's one of the first things you learn is a love for things and for people. Sharing your parents or carers at first is so hard. Then, you start to get really attached to your blanket and it's the one thing that you love and it's like, it's part of you almost. So giving it away is unimaginable. I remember when I was a kid, and I first started kind of going to preschool and I had this tiny little dinosaur. And it was just my favorite thing in the world. And I think when another child actually took it off me, I honestly just remember coming home and crying. And we were all struggling with sharing. And I think, exactly as you say, it's something most kids have to go through. For me as well, my brother and sister, who are twins, who I've got quite a big age gap with. So when I saw them growing up as twins, at each other's throats about sharing the whole time. So I think, for me, it's a real reality that I've kind of seen play out. So I think one of the best things you can do to kind of help kids to overcome the difficulty with sharing is just to model it and to show generosity. And I guess that's kind of what I wanted to do with the Chameleon is show him going on the journey of kind of not sharing at first, seeing where that leads. And then actually just picking up on that bit of empathy, going, okay, well, these are my new friends. I can see that they're sad. That's actually how I felt at the beginning of the book. So I get it. And now I want to share.
Yeah. As you're speaking and sharing the story of you when you were young and your brother and sister, I'm thinking a great conversation that a family can have after they read the Chameleons' True Colors, maybe for the 4th or 5th or 6th time, that a parent can just kind of share. I remember when I was young, it was so hard for me to share this or to share that, even if you don't remember and you have to make it up. It's, just allowing kids to see that you had to learn things, that you weren't perfect, that there was a learning curve for you. I think it gives our kids some hope and confidence that, hey, I'll be able to get through this too.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, it's very tempting to present yourself as kind of, Superman or Superwoman to the kids, but actually, we're all on a journey and we've all learned. And I think that can be really, really inspiring to see someone modeling that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about your illustrations because I'm really jealous because like the one thing that I absolutely cannot do in this world is draw. And, I can create art on stage with my magic and I can tell stories and I can do podcasts. I can paint my deck every year. But in terms of creating pictures, I can't do that. And your pictures are really unique. There's so much. There's a contrast. There's some you pick up some children's books and it's pretty empty. There's a character, there's a kid and a bird and a house, and that's it. And then another illustrator, there's so much detail. I mean, there's 1,000 individual blades of grass, and the canvas of the page is just filled with different things. Your page is, as I'm looking at these illustrations on your website, is kind of blank. There's not a lot of detail in the background, but each character has so much detail in it. Yeah, there's just one head of a bird, and there's color, and there's definition, and there's feathers, and I just love it. I don't know what more to say other than just the fact that I love that. And is this something, your style, is it natural to you, or is it just something that you've developed over the years?
Oh, well, thank you very much, firstly. It's definitely something that I've worked on. And, yeah, I'd love to say I kind of woke up first thing when I was young and just knew it, but no, I didn't. I definitely tried out different things. And I think something that kind of worked for me, as you say, with my slightly starker background, is that slight mix of a kind of more designy style where things are quite flat and things are quite kind of simple, actually mixed with what is more my kind of natural style that I gravitate to, which is actually quite detailed, quite intricate, quite painterly. But I think when those two worlds come together, I think it actually creates a really, really interesting effect, because it really draws the eye to the detail, because it's not everywhere, it's just in certain spots.
That's interesting. Now, is there a particular medium? I don't know if that's the word. Do you use paints or technology, or a combination of everything?
Yeah, I'm kind of mainly in the world of paints at the moment. I really like doing things hand-drawn still. You get kind of brilliant mistakes that, if you were in the digital world, you could correct, and that would be that, but you have to work around them here, which I think, for me is still really exciting, and an inspiring place to be. And also, it's fun to play around. I've kind of tried some different things. I hope this year, actually, again, as, lockdown continues, I'll be continuing to experiment actually with a bit more, kind of crayons, coloured pencils actually can be really, really fun. And it's great to keep learning, I guess.
Yeah. It's interesting you were talking about, working around mistakes, the beautiful mistakes that kind of happen. I just had this flashback of being in high school almost 100 years ago and having to do a term paper and typing it out, and you get to that last sentence and you make a mistake and you have to start all over again. There was no way to fix it. But you have that mistake, but sometimes that's inspiration. You can build on that mistake.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, it can absolutely lead to tears. I'm not here to try and pretend all mistakes are easy or happy things. They can be horrible, It can be as simple as I've been drawing, this same chameleon for God knows how long, and then I've spilt my coffee on it. Awful. But exactly as you say, once you're over the initial shock factor of it, sometimes it can actually push your brain into directions you hadn't thought it was going to go, and kind of gets you to think on your feet, and just, gets the kind of creative muscles working.
Now that you brought this up, I'm curious, has there ever been, or what is the biggest mistake that you were able to turn into a masterpiece?
Ooh, that is a great question. I've had a few, I've definitely done that exercise that I really liked, actually, and I've done this one deliberately, to be fair, because it got so kind of fun, and it's something I got taught at art school. You do blots of ink and just make them a mess deliberately. You just see where it happens, and then you try and make them into characters. And I find that really fun, and any kind of parents or kids listening, I would really, really recommend this, because it's great fun with your kids as well. You get these really funny shapes, and then actually you just use your imagination and see what they can turn into. And then once you've got this really funny character that you wouldn't have thought of had the ink blot not happened in that way, you can then actually work with it, and then you can draw it in other formats, and you've got a whole character that's kind of happened by accident.
Oh, cool. So, if a parent is listening at home and they want to do this with their kid, start off with a piece of paper and just blop some ink down on the paper.
Exactly that. Yeah, you could do that. You could also, splash some paint. That could also work, and just see what shape it will take. Let it dry, and then from there you can go in with maybe a marker or something else, and then draw it into a character.
That's really, really cool. What a great idea. What a great family activity that could be, that you could spend weeks doing that.
Oh gosh, absolutely. You can even just do it once and then like photocopy it a few times and get everyone in the family to work on exactly the same ones. And then the really fun thing is seeing how different the characters are that everyone's made up, because everyone sees different things in the ink dots.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a great, not only a great way to be creative and to be fun and to see how Dad works with his weird mind and see how Mom is different. But it's also a great way to talk to kids about perspective and how we all see things different. We all have different points of view.
Absolutely, exactly. And just, again, exercise that imagination muscle, because sometimes at first it's hard. I think I remember the first time I ever did it, you just kind of go, well, that's an ink blot. What am I supposed to do with that? But when you kind of get going and suddenly you realize you get better at it as you go along, and you just immediately see, oh, that's a monster. Oh, that's I don't know, whatever it might be, a tree. And it's really great fun.
That is really, really fun. I'm wondering, do you think of yourself as an author who illustrates, or as an illustrator who writes sometimes, or authors sometimes?
I think in both directions. I guess, I think maybe primarily an illustrator, because that's where I probably started. I love reading. I love books, always have done. But I think, especially, a few years ago, I didn't necessarily see myself writing, because it's quite a scary kind of barrier to overcome, the idea from just looking at someone else's work, critiquing it, understanding it, to suddenly going, oh, I can try this. And I think, it's something, again, that I've worked on, will continue to work on. But illustration, I think I've been doing since I was very, very little in terms of drawing. So I guess that one's really intrinsic to me, really, and who I am.
Awesome. Well, I'm really happy that you're exercising both muscles, your illustration muscle and your writing muscle, because you've created a beautiful story here that I know folks are going to love to share with their kids. The Chameleons' True Colors, a brand new book from our buddies at Familius, and they always do such a great job with their books. They're really inventive and creative, and the books themselves are works of art, I think.
Absolutely, they're brilliant. They definitely know what they're doing, and they've got some great ideas up their sleeve.
Yeah. Well, I know people are going to want to know where. I mentioned that I'm on your website and I'm looking at these different illustrations. There's this great illustration of a couple of elephants and a squirrel and a chipmunk, I think, and there's a lot of information there. So where can folks go to find that website?
Oh, thank you. So I think a good place to start is my Instagram. So my Instagram is at Yuliartist. So it's YULIYARTIST. From there, you should be able to find a link to my website as well, which is actually also www.yuliartist.com. And you can have a look there. I'll also be posting lots of information about the Chameleons' True Colors. I'm going to be doing a launch event, so I'll be posting about that in the kind of coming months and weeks as well.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait, and we can't wait to have you back to celebrate your next project here on the podcast. We've been talking to the author and illustrator of the Chameleons' True Colors, brand new book from our friends at Familius, Yuliya Pankratova. Yuliya, thanks so much for being back with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been great, as always.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Mr. Roses. What an interesting character Mr. Roses is. He is an engineer who writes inspiring children's stories. It really is a fascinating conversation. You don't want to miss it. That's the next episode of the podcast. If you are the author of a great children's book, you absolutely want to check out our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. This is a program that has helped so many authors. Check it out. If our panel believes that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. Now that, in and of itself, is fantastic. But our Certified Great Read program comes with a number of really powerful tools that can help your book stand out from the crowd of books that are published every single month. Check it out today. Go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the author's click here button at the top of the page. Scroll on down to where it says Certified Great Reads. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Yuliya Pankratova. Be sure to check out the Chameleons True Colors. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan. Want to thank our amazing interns this semester, Hannah Pat Opoyski and Alexia Brown. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.